I mean, it was happening like at least weekly at one point, and there was a stage we went through where I was having to call the police to get her removed from the house like quite regularly, like every couple of weeks. And like I would never press charges against her. I would just ask them to go and take her somewhere away from me to keep me safe. There was a couple of the two times, once where I pushed her off me and once where I hit her back. She called the police on me both times, and I got arrested for both of them because the police come in, you tell the story, and they go, "Oh yeah, you're twice the size of her. We don't believe that she's the aggressor." And you go and spend the night in the cells, and then there's no case to answer, and you get let out. But it doesn't take away the fact that you've had to spend the night in the cells for keeping yourself safe.
So your arrest bite is you being arrested, isn't it? From that?
Yeah, in a fashion, yeah. There was times where they just take, like, I think once or twice, the police come and took me to my mum and dad's, or most of the time it was that she would get took away because they could see that they'd often turn up and she was still like, I'd have barricaded myself in the spare room and she was trying to smash the door in to get to me. It was that bad. And they would hear it on the phone and they would see it when they got there. So like there wasn't an issue with me trying to convince them at that point that she was the aggressor because they could see it.
I was going to say, it's got to be, have got to know at some point that it's not all your fault. This is not you, this is her. This is flipped. And especially if you've got bruises and if you've got bust noses and stuff like that and black eyes.
Yeah, but I would just refuse to give a statement most of the time. All I wanted was for it to stop. I didn't want them to arrest her or for them to prosecute her, or you would worry that it would make things worse because you know that a lot of the time people are not going to go to jail for it. You don't know what they're going to do to you if they start getting in trouble. And for me it was enough that they took her away and I could be safe. And then the next day she would come crying and I would take her back. And
so obviously if this has happened quite a lot, was any of the police kind of saying, look, we know this is a problem? Anyone like just take you aside going, look, you need to kind of sort this out, or you need to do something about it, or we're going to get you help? Nothing like that?
My experience with the police was really negative. Like I don't think that as a male victim that you, or then, this is obviously going back a long time now, I don't think I was treated very well. I don't think they really acknowledged like how the lack of safety that I had at that point, like the threat that I was under. I don't remember ever really having a particularly positive experience with them.
Is this like early 2000s, Andy?
No, a bit later than that, about 2012.
2012? Okay. Doesn't seem that long ago, really, does it? Not to us. But
no, but I think there's a lot of change has gone on in that time, hasn't there? A lot of the way that people look at domestic violence and about the way that men's mental health's affected by all sorts of things has changed in the last 10 years, hasn't it?
It's creeping, but it's taken a lot of effort from people like yourself and men's mental health groups.
Yeah.
Not funded groups, but groups that have opened by themselves to make something happen because nothing's happening. Yeah. I think there's quite a similar trait in all of these mental health groups that I've found, is they're opening them because nothing's being done. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's strange when you look at mental health and you look at physical health, and people with physical health problems are not relying on groups run out of a church hall to deal with their physical problems, whereas mental health, you go into Andy's Man Club in a social club room and things like that, aren't you? And a lot of it is charity funded, and it does seem a bit of like a disconnect between physical and mental health.
Why is that?
I mean, it takes time to establish things like that, doesn't it? Like, I mean, mental health's obviously always existed, and people will say to you now with things like ADHD and autism, oh, that didn't exist 20 years ago. Well, of course it's always existed, but it takes a long time to acknowledge things, and then to build the infrastructure that's required to support it takes a lot. But I think the way things are now in the National Health Service, there's not really any scope to be able to increase services. Because no one wants to be a nurse or a healthcare assistant or anything like that, because the pay is terrible and the working conditions are terrible. And like, I think I've only worked in mental health for 8 years and things are constantly getting worse, not better. Because they can't, even if they put more funding into it and put more jobs out, there's no one to apply for them. No one wants to be a nurse.
And that's pretty much partly because of the pay.
Oh yeah, like almost exclusively because of the pay. I went from, when I qualified as a nurse, my pay went down from working in a supermarket to being a nurse.
Really?
Yeah. Only briefly, but it did go down very slightly, yeah. And you're better off while you're training as a nurse, you get more money while you're training. than you do when you qualify because of the discounts you get on council tax. You don't, like, you get a bursary, you get the student, like, I'm including getting a student loan and things like that, so it's like, it's borrowed money, isn't it? But
Yeah, because they're
it does
encouraging you
feel
to
like
do the job, aren't they? But,
yeah, the
but when you get-
incentives that are there,
yeah.
but it's still not enough to make people want to do it at the moment.
Is it going to change?
I mean, I don't think it is, because I don't think that the government got the desire to improve NHS services, and the shipping in nurses that they can pay at the current rate by, you know, getting people from Africa and Asia to come and do the jobs, and some of them are good at it and some of them are not.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a cultural thing as well, isn't it? I mean, understanding our drinking culture, you got to have lived it, haven't you? I think, especially now. You know, we're sitting here talking about, you know, back in the day, and it was quite bad back in the day, but it was just a thing, wasn't it? You know,
Yeah.
with the drugs and the cocaine, like you mentioned, and you know, I don't know. It's the same as police. It takes some like understanding of where you're from and what the area is to actually get roots to the problem. You know.
Yeah.
Find the issue and resolve the issue, but it's putting a band-aid on a broken leg, I think, all the time.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like that lived experience counts for so much, and you know, you recruit nurses from other parts of the world that don't have like the cultural experience to work in mental health. I think they do a lot better job in like general nursing and child nursing and things like that than what they can in mental health, because the cultural understanding of what goes on in mental health here, especially in a town with the issues that Middlesbrough's got. Like we've got the highest level of drug use in the UK, I think. But in a way, it's a positive because it puts so much money into that sector. We've got so much support for people with drug and alcohol problems, which I didn't realise at the time I had the problem. I suppose it probably would have been a good thing to know about then, but I also don't think I even recognised ever that I had a problem until I'd just stopped.
So the relationship, how did this end?
So there was a brief period we went through where we'd been on a night out once, we come home, and she had kicked off and assaulted me and whatever, and I just stormed out and left. And when I left, she packed her stuff and went and moved into the pub that she was working at and broke up with me, and we were split up for a little period. During that time, I slept with someone else and got them pregnant. Didn't know that had happened. Then we ended up getting back together, trying to make that relationship work, and I mean, it was worse than ever. That was then the period where the police were involved loads. The cocaine use was wildly out of control for both of us. And then I found out that I was going to be a dad, not to the person that I was in a relationship with. And it just clicked in my brain then, like, I've got a responsibility to this child that's coming, and I can't do that while I'm in a relationship where I'm getting battered. Even if she wanted to support me, and she did, like, I told her what was going on and that I was breaking up with her, and she begged me to stay with her and said, I'll raise the child with you. And I was just like, I appreciate the offer, but it's just not an environment you could possibly bring a child into. And she threw the coffee table at me and I left, and that was the end of it.